So what if you could get your hands on the private letters of a demon? Well, that's pretty much what we're doing today. We're cracking open a captured playbook, a whole series of letters from a senior devil named Screwtape to his nephew, teaching him the subtle art of corrupting a human soul. Yeah, it's a bizarre and brilliant guide to our own weaknesses, so let's just dive right in. Okay, but right from the get-go, the author, C.S. Lewis, gives us a really crucial heads up. This isn't some sensational horror story, you know? It's a super sharp, satirical look at human nature, just from the devil's point of view. So as we get into this completely inverted world, the key is to remember what he said and stay balanced. All right, so first things first, to even begin to understand this playbook, we've got to learn the lingo. I mean, just like any secret organization, hell has its own internal code words for, the key players in this whole spiritual war. And it's this simple little inversion that makes the whole book just work. For them, the enemy is God, and the human they're trying to corrupt, they call him the patient. I mean, right there, it flips everything on its head. It forces you to look at your own daily struggles from this completely alien, totally bizarre perspective. Okay, so now that we've got the lingo down, let's get into this strategy. And this is where it gets really fascinating. You see, Screwtape's playbook doesn't kick off with these big, grand, theatrical sins. Oh no. The war starts way more quietly, right on the battlefield of your mind. And the tactics he uses are, well, they're shockingly familiar. This is basically Screwtape's golden rule. Rule number 1, don't argue. He warns his nephew that actually arguing with a human is super dangerous because it gets their reason working. And for a demon, reason is enemy territory. So the goal isn't to convince the guy that materialism is true, not at all. It's just to keep him so busy, so distracted, that he never even has a quiet moment to ask himself if it might be false. And he gives this perfect example of the tactic in action. Screwtape's talking about one of his own patients from back in the day, an atheist sitting in a museum who suddenly starts having this profound, potentially life-changing thought. So what does Screwtape do? Does he debate him? Nope. He just whispers, "Hey, it's about time for lunch." And that's it. That simple, everyday thought is all it takes to completely derail a massive spiritual breakthrough. It's literally distraction as the ultimate weapon. And this is where the advice feels just shockingly modern, right? Screwtape tells his nephew to keep the patient totally absorbed in what he calls real life. The noise, the news, the daily grind. This constant flood of stuff is designed to convince the human that that is what's real, and all those deeper thoughts, oh, those are the strange, unreal things. I mean, does that sound familiar to anyone? So, once the mind is full of all that noise, the playbook moves on to its next target. And this is key. Screwtape shows that the most effective corruption, the really good stuff, isn't found in some dark alley. It's right there at home, in church, in our most ordinary relationships. He's basically teaching his nephew how to weaponize the mundane. I mean, just take this 4-step plan for turning a son against his own mother. It is an absolute masterclass in psychological poison. It's not about causing big, dramatic fights. No, it's about cultivating these little things he calls daily pinpricks. You get the son to turn his prayers into just a list of his mom's faults. You make him hyper-aware of every annoying little habit she has, all while making sure he stays completely blind to his own issues. It's just a perfect little storm of resentment. And it's not just family he goes after either. Screwtape reveals that the one place the patient goes for spiritual renewal, the local church, can actually become the main tool for his disillusionment. The whole strategy, it just hinges on that gap between the grand spiritual ideal of church with a capital C and the messy human reality of the actual church down the street. And listen to the weapons he suggests using. They're hilariously petty. Squeaky boots, bad singing, people with double chins. Seriously, Screwtape's advice is simple. Just get the patient to focus on all of these tiny, imperfect human details until he just decides that the religion of such ordinary, flawed people has got to be completely ridiculous. The whole goal is to make him judge the entire faith by its most unimpressive followers. So you see, all of these small, subtle tactics, the mental distractions, those little domestic annoyances, the disappointments, they're all building towards something. They're all part of Screwtape's ultimate strategy. And this is the really chilling climax of his entire philosophy. Now, this might be the most profound and, honestly, the most disturbing piece of advice in the entire playbook. The absolute best way to win a soul for hell, Screwtape argues, isn't through some spectacular, wicked act. No, it's through a slow, quiet, barely noticeable slide away from anything that matters. A path so gentle the person on it never even realizes they're heading anywhere at all. And this single quote just captures the very essence of his grand strategy. No alarms, no big warning signs. The kind of damnation he's talking about isn't like falling off a cliff. It's more like a casual stroll down a gentle hill that you just never quite decide to turn back from. And what's at the bottom of that gentle slope? Well, it's this state of nothingness. It's a life that's been wasted, but not on big, exciting sins or grand ambitions. Nope. It's wasted on vague daydreams, tiny little curiosities that lead nowhere, and just endless procrastination. It's a life spent doing neither what you're supposed to do, nor even what you really want to do. Okay, so we've seen the whole strategy, right? Distraction, weaponizing the everyday, and that long, slow slide into nothingness. It really seems like a complete step-by-step guide to corruption, but there's a final twist. And it's because C.S. Lewis planted this one critical piece of information right at the beginning of the book that changes everything. Remember this? From the preface, Lewis explicitly tells us the devil is a liar. So what does that mean? It means we can't actually trust everything Screwtape says, even when he's talking to his own nephew. And that forces us to go back and reread his entire playbook with a totally new, much more critical eye. And that leaves us with the real kicker, the final question. If Screwtape is a liar, then what is the truth that he's so desperately trying to hide from us? Well, the answer is just brilliant. Think about it. If the road to hell is paved with distraction and petty annoyances and that gentle, gradual slope, then the path to the opposite has to be found in focused thought, in everyday kindness and charity, and in making the conscious, deliberate choice to walk uphill. The devil's playbook, it turns out, is also an inverted map to salvation.